Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Mike Sauter. I am a assistive technology. Oh, yes, thank you. Eric, I was just about to start that AI. Thank you very much. Let's start that up. I am turning on the AI companion. There's also a new AI summary that will be produced. There's a lot of new AI stuff happening, so this is perfect timing. If you also noticed, there is a live auto transcription that's running. You can access that at the top left of your screen. There will be a link that's available for you to see a live auto transcription. So let's get back to introductions. My name is Mike Sauter. I am an alternate media and assistive technology specialist at Saddleback College. I am also your KPED Assistive Technology co-chair for our SIG group. And this is a KPED AT-SIG event, right? So we are being brought to you today by KPED, through KPED, for all of our AT specialists in the field. I'm here with a few colleagues that are also going to help out with this presentation. Brian Kraus is from El Camino College. I also have with me a colleague here at Saddleback, Francesca Gillens. Information about KPED. KPED stands for the California Association for Post-Secondary Education and Disabilities. Our website is kped.co. So let's talk about note-taking real quick. The problem that we see our students are dealing with for note-taking. In the classroom, students are being bombarded with information. We're talking about a physical classroom, but it could easily be also for an online class in a class that's happening with live lectures online, or even at your own pace, the asynchronous classes. So the visual information that students are being given and they have to process, right? So you're talking about PowerPoints on the board, you're talking about examples, handouts, all of that visual information that the instructors are using to portray the information, as well as the auditory, as well as the lecture itself, the discussions, the questions in class, the reading and processing. As they're listening to the lecture, they're trying to process that visual information on the board. They're trying to follow along in the PowerPoint. They're trying to read along in the handout, as they're also trying to write down really good notes, write down notes that they are going to use to then study from, to help learn the information, right? And the students have to do this quickly. They have to do this with pace, right? And oftentimes students with any kind of issue that is giving them a barrier, that it's inhibiting them from processing one of these types of modalities, they now have the potential to fall behind on the note taking. And that idea of losing information or not gathering enough information, right? The anxiety that they feel is very, very real. So we've always used note-taking accommodations here in DSPS. That's been around for a while. Recording has been an option for that, as well as peer-to-peer note takers. We can talk about the problems with peer-to-peer. I think a lot of us can agree that while it's wonderful when you have someone really great in class to take notes for another student, there are often some pitfalls with that. Relying on another person, relying on their comprehension of the material, relying on their writing skills, and just relying on them showing up sometimes is or one of the easiest challenges that we can talk about. So the accommodations that support note-taking in the classroom must be approved through DSPS. And that's what we're talking about. In California, students do not have the right to record. They have an accommodation to record. Okay. And for that accommodation, it must be approved through a DSPS process. A letter of accommodations must be presented to the instructor. The instructor must be notified that the student is using that accommodation. Okay. In that letter of accommodation, students must agree to certain conditions for that. There are code of conduct issues. There are also the fact that the recording is to be used for educational purposes only. I do see a hand. If you have a question, can you please put it in the chat for right now? We will have time at the end of the training for questions that we can unmute and do all that. Let's see. And then we also talk to students about, hey, if there's any issues in the classroom with an instructor who is not allowing recording or letting the student know, or just it doesn't feel like it's like the student is given that accommodation very easily, that there's a little bit of a pushback, we tell the student to come back and talk to the SPS counselor. Bring it to the counselor so the counselor can address the accommodation need with the instructor. And hopefully that will squash it. But we don't want a student to affect the relationship that they are building with that instructor, especially. So for our users in education and students with disabilities, we see that this has a really good benefit in all different types of class types, from in-person lectures and labs to online classes, hybrid classes where you have one day in class, one day online, or even live Zoom classes, or Teams, or other types of online class like that. Offsite or field studies, and then even appointments too. Having a student be able to use it during a counseling session or an educational counseling visit so that they can capture everything that's being talked about during that visit as well. And then almost across the board, using note-taking accommodations really do benefit students of almost all types of disabilities. The learning disabilities, the ADHD, the anxiety, right? The cognitive processing issues, mobility, obviously mobility and writing, and then blind and low vision, and even deaf and hard of hearing. I have a few examples here at my college of a blind individual using Glean very successfully. And then even we're starting to have conversations with our deaf hard of hearing specialist about providing one of these tools to a student as a backup to their in-class interpretation, whether they have sign language interpretation, being able to have a transcript of that class after the fact has some benefits. And while we're not going to use it as the only accommodation for that deaf individual for interpretation, having it as a backup is, I think, is a nice alternative. I'm gonna pause right here. I'm gonna open it up. Does anyone have any burning questions that we need to address? Brian, you see anything in the chat that you want me to?
Yeah. The question would be, can an instructor legally deny a student with an approved accommodation to record the lecture?
No. The ADA protects that student for the accommodation. Now, if that instructor needs to have a conversation about the nature of the course, there may be situations in a class where I can think of certain psychology classes and counseling classes where students are divulging personal information. And in those types of situations, it may be appropriate for that student who's recording to stop the recording, right? And that can be an easy conversation to have, but just blatantly denying it because of that, that's not okay. But having some kind of compromise when something like that comes up in class where the student can pause the recording, I think is a consideration that should be taken on the student's end. Brian?
We've talked to some of our instructors who adamantly do not want to allow anyone to record. And we offered them the idea that they can record the lecture themselves and then they can control what's being sent to the student. But I've yet to get an instructor to agree to that. It was too much work on their end.
Okay. So let's cover a couple of some key features between the two apps. We're talking about Glean and Otter. This presentation is basically a breakdown of the two softwares. So both Glean and Otter are subscription-based software. They both record in the cloud, and they both have apps as well as browser access. That has really opened up the accessibility of recording in the classroom, having this cloud-based recording so that you're not using a lot of your storage space on your phones. How they work is a little bit different. Glean will record locally first and then push it up to the cloud once it's been recorded. And there's a timing issue where over time it'll push everything off of the local device unless you actively download it to your phone and keep it on your phone, because you can keep things locally. So what that means is Glean will work if you're not on Wi-Fi and if you're not on network. It will record even if you are on AT&T and you had a massive outage yesterday and you couldn't make a phone call. Otter is dependent on having network connection. So if you are in a situation where you don't have good Wi-Fi and you don't have clear cell signal, believe me, it still exists. In my office right here, I have no cell reception. I'm in a bunker in this new building. Otter has some issues connecting and getting a transcription. Now, we did play that yesterday. It will still try to record, but you won't see a live transcription while it's happening. So it feels like it's not recording, but in actuality it is. It's just waiting to push that audio up to its server to give you that transcription. Okay. And like I said, both have apps, both work on Apple phones and Android phones. And the apps are free to download. All you have to do is have a subscription. They're both recording audio and audio as lectures, right? And we're talking about lectures. Both of them have transcription. Otter is a real-time transcription. So what you see while it's recording is displayed on your screen as text. Glean records audio first, and then you must later activate or upload the audio to be transcribed as text that you can then use in your notes. So there's a subtle difference between the two. Glean has just unveiled a new feature called captions. So it does have live captions available while you're recording, but those live captions are not a transcription. It is not a file that you can necessarily save as far as I've seen. So you would still need to make a transcription of the recording after the fact. In Glean handles PowerPoint slides, PDFs, and images very, very well. It allows you to import directly into the project of your recording, a PowerPoint slide, PDFs, or even images. Otter has image capture on the computer. So you can screen grab on the computer and it will automatically screen grab. If you're in a Zoom and you're sharing a screen, it'll automatically do screen grabs. On the app itself, you can also use the camera to take photos. Same thing with Glean as well. If you're using the app, you can take photos from your camera. So you can grab pictures of the slides on the board. Glean is very interactive during the lecture process, during the actual live lecture. It allows interactivity by way of tagging the audio with certain headers and images to allow for easy playback when you're listening back to the recording. And there's keyboard access with that tagging of the audio, which I think is really important if you're on the computer. In Otter, it really only has a few ways to interact with it during the live recording. You can make highlights and comments and tasks, but it really relies on AI in the back of it to do a lot of the work for that tagging, for that creating notes. The playback features for both are very similar. Glean and Otter both have the ability to speed up the playback or slow it down. Glean has filters, which are really good, that can reduce background noise, reduce clicks, reduce typing sounds, right? Reduce that annoying guy in the back that's clicking his pen. And Otter has the ability to skip silence in a recording, which is a useful feature as well. Both have AI built into it. Otter has AI built into it as its main functionality. It produces AI summaries, AI task lists, and also has a GPT style chat, which allows you to interact with the lecture, which is really cool. Glean uses AI in this feature called Quiz Me that produces quizzes based on the recording. Okay, boom. That's a basic rundown of the two. And I didn't do a pro and con because each one of these features will fit certain students' learning style, their technology readiness, right? Their ability to use and grasp new technology, right? And the class, the makeup of the class. How is the class being presented? I think we're ready for a little demo. Jumping in. All right. I'm going to jump into Glean first, and I'm going to run through a demonstration of Glean. Now, I'm going to show you Glean. Now, I am running Glean in Google Chrome as a browser. Glean, I'm on a Mac. Glean will work on a Windows or PC. It will only work in Chrome or Edge, I believe, and Firefox. It does not run in Safari. So it is browser specific. I am running it just in the browser itself here. And what I'm going to do, this is the main interface. When we first log into the program, over here on the left, we see our home tab, a collections tab, a task tab, and a search tab. Collections will store recordings in different folders. Tasks will give you a list of tasks that were created during recordings. And the search feature allows for searching of recordings using keywords or series of words. Back to the home screen, we see a new event, plus button to start a new event, and a list of all previous recordings. So let's go ahead and click new event to start a new event. Now, Glean acts, it looks as a recording as an event because it incorporates more than just recording. So that's why it doesn't say new recording, it just says new event. So let's give it a name. Let's just call it demo. And after we give it a name, let's go ahead and start the recording. The record option icon to the left will give us options on how we want to record. Now, if I am in person, I would use the microphone recorder because I want to record everything that it hears. If I am online, I could just simply record the screen audio. So if an instructor is giving a lecture and there's not a whole lot of feedback from the audience, then screen audio will just produce a really good recording of the screen audio, and it will not record you at all outside of the computer. If you wanted to also record yourself having a dialogue, then you would want to choose the third option, screen audio and mic. I'm going to select the microphone option for us because it can just hear me. And immediately it starts recording. And the audio is being displayed on one of two panes here in the main screen. On the right, the audio is being displayed just in these bubbles. If you are familiar with the old version of this software that predates the name called Audio Note Taker, this is a an image of how audio note taker used to display audio in these little bubbles. So you can see bubble speak. And then when there's a pause in the recording, or not a pause, but a pause in the sound, it'll show you a line. In the middle pane is where the main notes feed will show up, okay? And I have an option to import slides in the middle pane, which I am going to do by let's do a PowerPoint slide. This is actually a PDF document that I pulled into the recording. So now I have three panes. I've got my my slide on the left, my notes in the middle, and my audio showing on the right, my three panes across the screen. At the bottom of the screen is our tagging pane. Now here we can tag the audio using various icons and tagging to actually build notes. So this allows for the student to build some really good notes based on what they're hearing. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to post this slide to the recording. And what that did was that included the slide title into the notes pane, my feed of notes. It also separated the audio using the title as well, so I can see a visual separation of the actual recording. This clues the student into the fact that this part of the audio of the lecture is part of slide one. So as the instructor is talking and they get to important aspects of the lecture, the student can use these three icons at the bottom, as well as these other icons to add information to this. Let's do the first one. The first one is the important note. So this is a label note called important. If I select it once, it gives me the option to write out information real quickly, concisely, just a couple of words. I hit enter, and that note posts to the feed. I can use that label important as many times as I need, just by simply clicking it and tagging it. Now, if I don't know what to type, I can simply just hit the tag and hit enter and add a note, because all I really want to do is tag that moment in the audio that's important, that I want to come back to, right? So notice as I was doing that, the text was written out here in the text pane, right, my notes, but then on the right-hand side in the audio, an icon has also been added to the recording in the time that I selected that tag. And it actually back selects a few seconds, because you got to imagine the processing time for a student to hear something, think about how important it is, and then want to make it as a note is a few seconds long. And at that point, the tag itself backspaces a few seconds. The other tag is this little icon of some guy thinking. So I use this as the reminder tag. So I can hit that reminder tag and I can say, read chapter 2, right? And it's just a little thought bubble. This is real quickly, I can add those tags. So I'm creating quick notes, but I'm tagging the audio. Next to those three tags, let's do this. Let's add the next slide. So the instructor has gone on to the next slide. I'm going to post the next slide to my recording. So now I see a display of the new slide, and I also have it represented in the notes and then in the audio. Now in this new slide, I can add more notes, obviously. The other three icons to the right of those three icons are the post image, definition, and task icons. So let's click post image. Post image on my computer allows me to import a photo or search the internet for images that pertain to what the instructor is talking about. So I can grab an image and insert it into my notes. Next to the image insert is the post definition. And post definition will pull up a definition from Wikipedia and add it to the notes. And then finally, the task will give me an option to add a task, an assignment, right? Like I said, I need to read chapter 2. I'm going to add that as an assignment. I can also include a due date. I've got to do that for Monday and add that to my notes as well. Notice the in the audio, bullets have been added for those three tags: the image, the definition, and the task. Okay. Let's post next slide. And slide 3 is now shown. And I'm going to switch to lightning mode. Lightning mode quickly gives me keyboard access to these posts. So I can use the corresponding number 1, 2, and 3 for the header, the important, and the image. So I can just click number 2 and add a quick tag, 3 and add a quick tag. I can use the letters corresponding with image for I to add an image. I can use W to add a definition, and I can use T to add a task. So real quick, adding notes into the recording just using these keyboard shortcuts. Now I haven't used the header one yet, but I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut 1 to add a header. And a header is a big separation in the recording. It shows header at the timestamp. I can change the text in here if I wanted to, but it also shows a big separation here in the audio. So if a student doesn't have slides for their lecture, they can use the header tag to represent a new slide very easily. Okay, I am going to stop the recording and go into playback mode. So for a student to now come back to this recording, they can listen back to the audio at any place they put a tag or any place at all in their recording just by simply either going to the tag and hitting play. First one is the important note. So this is a label note called important. If I select, or they can go into the audio itself, separation of the actual recording. And they can jump all the way through as many times, time for a student to hear something, right? Whether it's just on one of those tags or not. The play button is available in all these locations up here in the top left, in my my notes pane, and also in the audio pane. I can also just click there to play. Next to the play button is the options for audio. So if I click that, I can adjust my playback speed up to 3 times fast. I can also apply these filters to help clean up the audio. Low pitch, high pitch, noise cancellation, click reduction. They do work really well to produce better audio quality. Okay. Let's add some transcriptions now. The audio must be transcribed, and the transcribe button is available here at the top right of the audio pane. And I click that, and you must be connected to the internet. You must have that connection, and it will push the audio up to Glean servers, start processing the audio for transcription, and then give us results here in hopefully just a few seconds. This is only a 7-minute recording, so it shouldn't take too long. While that's going on there, let's look at the other views available to us up here on the top right. The first icon is a little image of a timer, and this is Glean's tool to start a focus timer, because if you've done any kind of reading about focus and attention, having focus time to study and then short breaks away can really help with retention. So you can start a focus timer right into the program, and it does a little countdown. Next to the focus timer is also a reading view. This will change the view of the recording to just the text that I have in that text pane. From here, I can copy and I can print. Let's go back to the other view. I can also turn off panes. If it's becoming too much visually, I can turn off the slides. I can turn off the audio, and I can just focus on what I want to focus on. And then finally, the last option over here on the far right, we have the ability to copy notes. We can import audio directly into Glean and have it process the audio. We can replace slides or delete slides. And then we can easily add this recording to a collection for a class. But let's jump over to the transcript now. So we have the transcript available. Now we have two buttons, the audio button, which we're showing now, and the transcript button. So by clicking on the transcript button, we now have a transcription of the audio. And in here, I can play this back. I can click play. You are familiar with the old version of this software that predates the name, called Audio Note Taker. This is a so I can follow along with the lecture through the transcription now during playback. And if there's something that I would like to use in this transcription, I can highlight it and I can post it directly into the audio, the text pane. So scrolling through the transcription, I can grab text, right? So this is directly from the instructor themselves, and it adds it in the correct time of the recording as well. So let's jump down here and post that so we can see it adds it in the correct time. So now when I want to look at just the reading view that just shows all of my notes that I was able to pull from the lecture, I can see it included the transcription as well. And copying the notes right from Glean and bringing it into a document like Word produces the same notes that you had on the browser are now in a Word document. You can copy them into Word, you can copy them into Pages, you can copy them into Google Drive as well, Google Docs. Okay. The newest feature built into Glean is this icon up here on the top right called QuizMe. QuizMe is AI, and it is really cool. You can simply just click Start the Quiz, and it'll use the information in the recording that you generated this QuizMe from into these questions. What is displayed on the right pane in the main screen? That would be the audio. What keyboard shortcut is used to add a definition in Lightning mode? Definition, image. So the questions it generates 5 questions. And then after the questions, it will show the student results with the answers. and you can retake it or generate a new one. So a simple AI tool built into Glean that now gives some really helpful quizzes for studying. And that is now included in your Glean subscription. It is. So let's quickly, I want to show you real quick what the app looks like. I am running the app on an iPad. It's a little bit bigger screen. Very similar though, layout. Really easy to use, really intuitive. I'm logged in and I see my list of recordings that I've made. I can create a new event. I can give it a name. And then I can click start recording. And it starts recording. So in this view, it just shows me that it is recording with this time clock, my notes pane in the middle, right? And then my three main heading, important, and review tags at the bottom, okay? So I can begin by adding a heading tag, and then start adding important tags. I can also use more of a lightning mode just by clicking on it and holding down, and it just automatically adds the tag. To add pictures, you want to get into some time, you want to get into a warp. Yeah, that's cool. I can add pictures really easily from the app. I can also add images from the internet or my device itself. And then definition and tasks are also available too. So real clean, real simple on your iPhone or smartphone or tablet device. The three dots up at the top right allow me to import slides. I can go to dark mode, right? And this will continue to record if you close the iPad. So if I close it and go to sleep, in essence, like putting the screen on dark, it will continue to record. That is Glean. All right, next up, let's jump over to Otter, and I will do a rundown of Otter. Okay. The Otter interface. The Otter interface, so and it's not a pro and a con, there are some differences in the interfaces here. Glean was made for, it's an educational company building an educational app for college students to take notes. That is Glean. Otter is a business application used to record meetings, and either whether online meetings or in-person meetings, and produce an AI generated transcript. It is very business like in its layout. That does not mean it's a con. It depends on the student. So the layout, once you're logged in, you're brought to the main screen, which shows on the left-hand side a place to view all of your recordings called Home. It also has really good connections with Outlook and Zoom. So the integrations with Outlook and Zoom can be added really easily. And therefore, I have it connected to my Outlook, and it shows my meetings, and it also shows my future meetings, and I can decide which meetings I want to send my Otter to. Let me click down to my conversations, which just shows me a list of all my conversations. Below that, there's another option for all conversations. And the apps give you a list of all of the connections that you can add to the subscription. And more just shows Other folders, shared with me in trash. Okay. There's also folders that you create to add collections to, so you can create folders for different classes. So let's go back to the My Conversations list. At the top of the page, we have a search box. We have a meeting URL to record, so you can send your Otter to meetings. And then you have the record button over here on the top. So the record button is how you start a recording. So let's go ahead and start a new recording. And now I am in a brand new recording in Otter, and it does real-time transcription of the audio that it can hear. It does it very well. Otter uses AI to do it. We've been using Otter for a while now on Zoom. If you've ever turned on the captions, the automatic captions, that's Otter. Now, the interaction with Otter is a lot lighter. You can interact with the transcription as it's happening. At the here in the middle of the page is our text that shows up. Over on the right-hand side, we have a pane for a chat feature, an outline, and comments. So let's see how that works. As it's recording and transcribing, you can interact with the text by highlighting. And when I highlight it, I have these options that pop up. One is to highlight. So let's do that now. So it highlights in one color, and it highlights the text that I selected. Let's do another selection, and let's choose comment. Now, comment gives me the ability to add a comment to it. So I'm tagging it with, what is this? Maybe I have a question that I want to come back to. So I want to add that comment. And that comment gets added to my comments pane over here on the right. Let's highlight again. I can add an action item. An action item is a task. And I can assign it to myself. Click me. Because I highlighted, it pulled that over into the comments. And then finally, add image. So I can bring in images from my computer. It will also automatically do screen grabs if I'm using this in an online meeting. I can also do the same functionality down here in the bottom. I have the highlight feature here. And what's great about the highlight feature down the bottom, if I just click it once, it'll grab that last line that was just said and added highlight. Same thing with the comment. And the task. And the image. It'll just add it directly in there. I don't have any images to add. But real simple, real easy for students who just want the recording and they want to see that it's recording and they want to see the text. Otter's a really good fit. Very little interaction, not a whole lot going on that can distract once you're actually in a recording. Okay, so let's jump into the chat. So Otter has really good built-in AI technology. And you can find it here in Otter Chat. But what Otter Chat is the ability for you to chat with your recording, doing it live. You can chat with your recording live. So I can message people here in this chat, or I can message Otter. And to message Otter, I must start with @Otter. And I can ask it to summarize the first part for me. And it'll do an AI summary. I can ask it to give me an explanation. The word AI technology means. So real interaction with the recording as it's happening live. That's really powerful for some students to have that ability to interact using this GPT type model. Okay. Let's stop the recording now. I did mention there's a way to pause recording and stop. Once I stop a recording in Otter, it's stopped. I can't go back in there and start recording again. If I pause it, I can. So once I have it stopped, I can jump back into a recording. Okay, so let's see. So we have the recording that's coming right from this meeting right now. So this is a live recording that's happening now. I have all the same features, the chat feature, the online outline feature, right? So I can engage with this live. Let's go back out to an older recording. Excuse me. Here we go. Technology committee meeting. Boy, this was a fun one. Okay, so in the playback of the recording, this is really where Otter excels, because what has happened is it's gone through the transcription and it's produced an AI summary of this meeting or class. Okay, and I can see at the very top, I am now looking at the summary, and this is the AI summary. It's given me a summary of the meeting, as well as action items that it found within the meeting of things that need to get done based on context. It also has produced an outline with screen grabs from this online meeting. And the outline is bulleted with headers and bullets. Now, this summary has direct access into the recording itself. So I can click right here in the action item and view it in the transcript and then listen.
So it has all the information about the RF Q&P. And then, like I said, Mike, so please keep an eye out for that. If you don't, maybe.
I was assigned another committee at that moment, and I was like, oh, you should have seen my face. So direct access into the transcript. So now I'm looking at the whole transcript, and I can tell that because it's changed over to the transcript tab on the top. So this is the entire transcript of the meeting. Okay, let's click back to summary, click back to the top. Let's go through our bulleted list, and I can jump into our bulleted list directly from that bullet, and brings me right to the actual part of the recording,
right,
which I can listen
cool.
to.
We have a full agenda, so let's jump on it. Let's
jump in. So quick access from summary to actual recording. Okay. So for a student, having the AI generate this summary, this bulleted list, can feel very helpful. It is AI. It is based on context. It is based on the recording. It is not perfect, right? However, it is really good. And for some students, that may be the selling point for them. This idea that they don't have to actually write out notes anymore. They can use this summary to help with their studying. We can copy the summary up at the top. So I can just copy it as is. If I do want to make any edits, I can edit it. There was a way to edit. Oh, maybe I have to edit the transcript, huh? Never mind. Let's just do a copy. I want to show you the copy summary. So I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. And like I did before, I'm going to go into a Word document. And in this Word document, I'm going to paste that summary. And what's great about this is it does give me a link that gives me direct access back into the recording online.
Mike, a quick question.
Yes.
Can you share this notes directly with somebody instead of copying it?
You can share it. You can share this this recording with people. The share button is up here on the top right. Now I can share with people that have Otter already, or I can copy a link. And as long as I put this restriction over to anyone with link, I can copy that link and share it just through an email or through a chat or through Teams, and then they now have access to the meeting. The everything, the summary, the transcript, and any of the comments that are found over here on the side. So here are some really good examples of how the AI was used in this recording here. So I asked it basically who's responsible for this, and it gave me a list of people who were responsible for the meeting. Can you generate a quiz on how to get new technology? Generated these 5 questions. Here's a 5-question quiz on how to process new technology with the answers. And I asked for the answers to the quiz. It showed me, so just like a ChatGPT, you can conversate with it. You know, I can also ask it. So I have to go at Otter, create a vocab. And it'll find keywords. And look at that, it found keywords within the recording, and it also offered a definition. I didn't even ask it to do that. You can ask it to create study guides. You can ask it to summarize the meeting, right? So let's say you're doing a live recording. We're talking about this yesterday, Brian. A student vet that needs to step out of the classroom for 10 or 15 minutes, whether they're dealing with chronic pain or they're just having some kind of issue that they need to step away. Their Otter can continue to record, and when they come back in, they can simply ask the Otter chat, please summarize the last 10 minutes of the class, and it'll give them a summary breakdown of what they missed. Okay, I'm going to jump real quick. I want to save time for questions. I'm going to jump real quick over into the app. There we go. Okay, so here we have Otter on the iPad, very streamlined as well. I'm going to hit the record button to start a new recording, and it immediately pops up a window that shows me the real-time transcription. Inside this window, I can get a full screen view. I can adjust the size. I can have access to all of the tools like the highlighters. I can add comments, and I can add pictures directly from the device. Now, I've had a student do this. They were sitting somewhere in the back of the class with their laptop, and the recording was not good. So what I suggested was they start the recording on their phone and put the phone up at the front of the class, and then get back on their laptop and log into Otter on the laptop, and they logged directly into that live recording. And they were able to make the tags, make the highlights, and do all those things. Now, if they wanted to add a picture into the recording, they can use their phone and add an image right from the phone.
When Mike and I talk about our students using the different technology, it seems that the students that I work with have less student skills, or maybe even may not have the tech readiness as his. So for our students, the ease of use of Otter on their phone, where they hit record, they set it down, they take a picture, put it back down, and they come back later to access it, versus where I think the strength of Glean would be the laptop's open and you're actually doing notes live, like while you're in the classroom. So I think that's the strength between the two. I think Otter gives you that in person, let me do the notes, I'm engaged in the class live, where Otter is more of that take a recording and the pictures and then come back to it later after the fact, more of a simple look at it. So that's how I'm taking it.
Yeah. One difference between the two as well is when you are giving licenses to students, Glean allows you to set an expiration date on that license. So you can set it to the end of the semester, and that helps for getting the licenses back into your coffers, and it also helps to reconnect with the student. So you're not just I mean, and you may want to just roll it out for the whole year. That's fine. That's on, that's for you. But if you want to reconnect with students to ask them how they're using it, how it's going, that's one way to do that. In Otter, once you give the license, you give the license, and all you can do is just expire it immediately at the end of the semester. Wonderful. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. We'll see you all soon. Take care.